Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. I'm Julie Barrett, founder of Conservative Ladies of America, and this is our Thursday weekly live stream. If you are joining us live, please let me know in the comments where you are watching from. I'd love to banter back and forth with you guys. The live stream is fun for me, more fun than doing regular videos and uploading because I get to interact with you guys. So thanks for joining me. And again, please let me know where you're watching from. And as we're going through this, please feel free to ask any questions, and I'll try to answer those as we go. We've got Mary Long, who is on our leadership team. She is in the YouTube chat, and Mary has been watching the Washington State Board of Health meeting today. So I'm sure there's some interesting stuff that she will report back to us, and we can bring you that information. I'm actually working on, I just had this idea earlier today that it would be fun to do like a virtual conservative ladies Christmas party kind of thing, just where we bring our whole team on to a live stream and kind of talk about some of the things that we've done this year and what we're planning on moving forward. We're kind of in like this interesting sort of transition, like what's the best use of our time and our energy, and trying to do everything that we can to expose what's going on in the government for citizens, and alert you guys as to what's going on and educate you as to how you can take action and how you can, most importantly, protect yourself and your family. Because sometimes it seems, well, most of the time, it seems like it is very difficult for citizens to make any kind of difference in our government, whether they just don't listen to us, which I think is primarily the thing. They have their agenda and they're going to do it regardless of what the citizens want. There's so much money and corruption and just deep state that we've got to deal with that I don't know how the little peasants like us, I don't know how we make a dent. And so we're trying, that's kind of what we're wrestling with right now. We've got like, it's so overwhelming and it can be discouraging at times. And so just trying to figure out how can we best use our voice to alert you guys, educate you guys, and do whatever we can to move the needle. So I've got a lot to cover today. Yupper dabber, I don't want to take this off topic, but just curious, have you seen a ruling on COSA App Store accountability and the Screen Acts that have passed today out of markups? I did watch that. And so we can definitely get into that. If you watched and you have your thoughts from that, I would love for you to put those in the comments. I can put those up on the screen and we can talk about those. I am going to get to that, because so what Yupper Dabber is referring to is there's a whole slate of 18 or 19 tech bills that they are pitching as protecting kids online, keeping kids safe online, and parental empowerment. But they are actually government mandates and sort of a gateway to digital ID. They're very bad, and they're all bipartisan. The Republicans are leading the charge. So we will go over that. They had their initial hearing in the House Energy and Commerce Committee last Tuesday. And then today, this morning, they had their subcommittee Commerce, I forget what it was, but it's the subcommittee of the Energy and Commerce Committee where they did the markup. So that's where they had like all these amendments and stuff. And it was really interesting to, honestly, you guys, it drives me nuts to watch these lawmakers and their committee meetings and their floor speeches and stuff, and the way they talk to each other. I mean, they're so good at patting themselves and each other on the backs. And it's very cringe, but we are going to get into those. I'm very concerned about these, and you should be too. I've been talking a lot about them. I've been posting a lot about them. They're all sponsored in some way by big tech, and big tech has kind of hijacked the I guess I'll just say broadly, the parental rights movement and a lot of the parent groups and groups on the right are really kind of getting on board with these bills that are really, really bad. So first, I want to talk about a couple of newly proposed bills in Washington, and we're going to go through these pretty quickly, but they're pretty bad. And so the first one is House Bill 2123. And I always love to say the only bills that we should be proposing are bills to repeal existing laws that we don't need. And so this bill fits the bill of repealing laws, but unfortunately, it's repealing a law that's, I would say, is probably very necessary. And one of the themes that we're seeing in Washington state this year, really all across the country, is a lot of bipartisan work. So you've got the Uniparty doing what the Uniparty does. And so House Bill 2123 is regarding foreign influence in Washington state. It's sponsored by Representatives Joe Fitzgibbon and Chris Corey, Chris is a Republican from Yakima. And I think a lot of people are rightfully alarmed that you've got a Republican in Washington state legislature that's co-sponsoring a bill that really, it actually repeals the bans on foreign influence in Washington elections. And, people have been fighting so hard in Washington state for elections that this is really, really kind of demoralizing, I'll say. And one of the things I want to point out before we even really charge into this stuff is I think it's really important that we separate personal from policy. And that's one of the things I really like about policy is I can pick a policy apart. I can attack a policy and tell you where the red flags are and why it's bad and why we shouldn't pass it. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying that the person is bad or anything like that. I'm not making personal attacks, although people will still accuse me, even when I'm only talking about the policy, they still accuse me of making attacks on good Republicans. But we have to be able to separate policy from people. Their job is to pass laws. They are lawmakers. And you're probably accountable to a boss in your job, or maybe you are the boss, but we all have to be accountable to the people that, are our bosses. And for lawmakers, the citizens of the state, of the country, are the bosses. And so they have a right to ask for accountability. They have a right to look at policies and say, this doesn't seem like it benefits the people in the way that we would want. So, and it'd be great if lawmakers could not get their feelings hurt over these things, but it seems to always be the thing. Hey, Leslie Williams just jumped into the live chat on YouTube. Good to see you. Leslie is one of our leaders in Republic, Washington. So she's up there in northeastern Washington. Okay, so let's kind of go through House Bill 2123. This bill will remove all of the certifications that political contributions are not from foreign nationals. It repeals all of Washington's laws prohibiting foreign nationals from spending in Washington state elections, and it removes disclosures about who funded political ads and campaigns. So existing law does not allow these things. So this House Bill 2123 is going to remove all that. Okay. And someone posted on X because some gals were asking some of the people that are in the Republican Party in Washington state about this bill and why is Representative Corey sponsoring this bill. And he said, well, this is to repeal a decades old law and bring it in alignment with existing federal law. And that is actually not true. That is false. It does not bring it into alignment with federal law. It actually repeals it so that it will be no longer in alignment if this law passes. So it's repealing RCW 29B.40.050, 29B40.060, and 29B.10.250. All of those were passed in a 2020 bill. It was Senate bill. I forget the number offhand, but this bill will strip the foreign national language from Washington state law. So from candidate filings, PAC reports, out-of-state committee reports, political advertising, electioneering communications. Now, the laws that was passed in 2020 that actually put this on the books was passed with unanimous support in the House. And I want to say there were 16 in the Senate that did not vote for it. And I think they were all, they're all Republicans. I am reading glasses years old now, guys. So again, foreign nationals and companies could spend money in Washington politics. If this bill passes, voters would not know who was funding these candidates, PACs, which are political action committees, or ads. And the PDC loses ability to enforce foreign national spending violations. So if you are already concerned about Washington election integrity, this bill is going to make that even worse. So again, this is pre-filed for the 2026 legislative session. It is bipartisan. That means there is a Democrat and a Republican that are co-sponsoring this bill. And that typically means that the bill will pass with strong bipartisan support because the other Republicans will come along and back this representative to give him cover. So again, these are not new laws. This is just repealing some of these good laws that were passed in 2020. So put that on your radar. We've also got a post up on our website. If you go to Conservative Ladies of WA.com and you click on blog, you'll be able to find this bill alert for House Bill 2123. Okay, so the next bill, and I had looked at this a couple of days ago when it was first pre-filed, because it's kind of an alignment, it's along the same lines of the tech bills that we're seeing in Congress. And it also is similar to a law that was passed with strong bipartisan support in Idaho, which is Idaho has a Republican majority. So this is House Bill 2112. I don't have a graphic for this one, but basically it's the age minimum for accessing adult content. And this is really, when you look at the bill, and someone, Jonathan Conley tagged me in this on X last night. I hadn't dug into it until he tagged me, and I really wanted to kind of go down the rabbit hole on this and figure out what we have. So what this does, it establishes a minimum age requirement for accessing certain adult content online, which of course, I think most of us would say, well, that seems like a good thing, protecting kids from inappropriate content. That's a good thing, but how are we going to do it, right? That's where it gets tricky. It would require platforms to implement age verification mechanisms, and this is where it gets interesting. What are those age verification mechanisms? And in this case, it would be a state issued ID. It could even be, this is the weird thing in the bill. And I posted a thread on my X account, which is at Julie C. Barrett. If you're on X, you can go. I just posted it this morning, so it's probably not too far down in my feed. Like private documents that you could use, like your mortgage, education records, like credit stuff. That seems like very personal information. And I think most of us have a healthy distrust of these, where we're submitting our data online. So it's a weird bill. It also creates, obviously, for, with these documents and even just government issued ID, it creates a lot of privacy concerns, like who's getting your data, right? Raises questions about enforcement, data collection, and of course, parental rights. And I just want to reiterate, you guys, a government mandate is never going to give you parental empowerment. And parents need to just step up and be the parents and stop asking government to do our jobs for us. So this bill could very easily, a lot of the language in the bill is really broad, which is what should kind of terrify everybody. when government gives themselves, a really long leash, you never know what they're going to do with it, right? So could require third-party age verification, could bring in a third-party vendors to this. So a website could have a third-party vendor that's going to run the age verification checks. It's definitely starting the framework, expanding the framework for digital ID systems, which is what we're seeing on a federal level and in a lot of states, especially red states. We're seeing a lot of red states do this. This could definitely impact parental authority over kids online. Who's going to be the gatekeeper? Are the parents able to say, well, this is kind of a bad example, but I'm just trying to make a point. I want my kid to see that content. But the law says the kid can't. So, and I think with their content, description, it's very vague, which could allow them, when you're looking at a state like Washington, it could allow them to, not allow you to see, things that they think are misinformation. Think back to COVID and the things that we were and weren't allowed to see and share and things like that. So this definitely could, it's like I say, they crack the door open and they don't ever shut the door. They just keep opening the door further. So, mission creep is definitely something that we should always consider with these types of laws. So like I said, it fits the trend for the national trend for this digital ID stuff that they've got going on. Now, Idaho passed a law to prevent kids from seeing, inappropriate content online, but they put the onus on the content providers and did not allow it was absolutely not a digital ID framework. And I'm actually going to be interviewing Idaho State Senator Brian Lenny next week, who was an integral part of getting Idaho's House Bill 498 passed in 2024. And basically it ended up sending Pornhub packing out of Idaho because it put the onus on the providers, and they just couldn't meet the requirements. So that was fine. One of the things I think was really interesting in Washington's, the text of Washington's bill, which again is House Bill 2112, they talked about animated content that showed like sexual acts. Now, if you've been paying attention to Washington or anywhere for that matter, on some of the books that are in the schools, and they call them graphic novels, right? When we were kids, they were comics, and now they're graphic novels because I guess it sounds so much more literary. So a lot of these graphic novels that depict sex acts are in the schools. And Washington, and there's several states that have passed this similar, it's like Freedom to Read Act or something like that. A number of blue states have passed this in the last couple of years. Washington passed it in 2024. I want to say it's House Bill 2331, but it protects these types of books so that parents can't go and complain and get these books pulled out of the schools. So if they're about LGBTQ content or if they're by an LGBTQ author, they are protected in the public schools. So I think it's just the irony, like the inconsistency. And it's like, what? So you don't want them to see it online, but it's totally fine if they check it out at the school library. So that makes me go, okay, there's a carrot here for the government to not want kids to have it online. Number one, it's a good sales pitch, right? We're trying to protect kids, and they're going to get lots of people on board with that. And it's digital ID. So now we're going to get your data, and not just from the kids, you guys, everybody is going to have to provide their data. And all of this is run through the Attorney General, which is another big difference from what Idaho did. It's not part of the state. It's like private. You can privately sue. It gives citizens a right to privately sue. It doesn't give the state any authority over that. So House Bill 2112, again, another bipartisan bill. This one is Ooh, I forget who the Democrat is, but this is another Chris Corey bill. And I will, to Chris Corey's benefit, say that when Jonathan tagged everybody on this X post last night, Chris Corey did ask for people to give him feedback. And I suggested that he connect with Brian Lenny, and he said he was going to reach out and do that. So we'll see, but I just want to give him the credit right now that he is asking to make it better and seems to legitimately want feedback. A lot of these it's not like they have to take classes to become legislators. Anybody can get elected to become a legislator. They just need to have the votes. So I don't know how many of these people have actually, done public policy, any kind of public policy studies. So I don't know what their experience level is with policies, or if they're just like depending on their legislative assistants and the legal people in their offices to help guide them on this. But I think most of the people behind these kinds of policies are lobbyists and, of course, big tech and things like that. And so it's not we, the people, that's having the voice here. And I think that the lawmakers know that, right? They know that they're doing the work of the lobbyists and special interest groups and big tech and things like that. So, but I do want to make sure that I give him credit for saying he's interested in feedback and seeing how he can make the bill better. Even if he tries to amend, this is what I'll say, even if he tries to amend it at this point, I don't know if the Democrats will go for it, because I think just the structure of this particular bill, giving more authority and power to the Attorney General's office, I don't think they'll want to give that up. So I don't see, I would hope that maybe they could make it like Idaho's bill, but I don't see that the Democrats are going to let them do that. I want to bring up this comment from Yupper Dabber. The issue with these online age ID laws is the fraud and theft that can come along with it. Some folks like me will just leave the net. Those who don't use it at all or don't understand it. Those who don't use it or understand it at all. So I think that's true. I think there are some people that will just leave, and we'll move from our smartphones to our flip phones and things like that. I think I was talking to my husband about this the other day, because our whole society is so dependent on online activity and being online to, a lot of people work online and remotely and have to use online platforms to do their jobs. And so it makes it really difficult from that angle. But I guess, we'll just end up leaving social media, which probably would be a good thing for our health anyway. Okay. So before we move on to the big tech stuff in Congress today, I want to talk about something that's a big concern for our friends in Washington right now. There's a lot of flooding in Western Washington, and so we hope that you are safe and that you are dry, and praying for all of you guys there in Western Washington. I know where we used to live in Western Washington is a pretty flooded area. Governor Bob Ferguson has declared a state of emergency, and this is the same state of emergency that everybody in Washington's got PTSD from Jay Inslee's 975 days of COVID emergency. So this was done yesterday. Declares statewide emergency responding to major flooding. This is through December 31, but he does have the ability to expand it if he wants. But I wanted to talk about this just for a minute, because I know a lot of people are really uneasy about this, and rightfully so. But hopefully I can give you a little bit of information that maybe will put you at ease a little bit. This declaration summarizes, this is flood-related, weather-related emergency, identifies the powers that were activated through the RCWs, which, like I said, are the same powers that Jay Inslee had during COVID. This could expand Ferguson's executive powers. The way that Washington's executive powers are set up, they don't need legislative approval. And not everybody knows this, but back in 2019, the legislature amended Washington State's, the governor's emergency powers to actually grant him more power. This was again in 2019 legislative session, and then we had 2020 right after that, where he was able to take full advantage of his new powers. And so there was talk in all of the sessions really since 2021 and on of amending these emergency powers to bring in legislative oversight and approval. And none of those have actually made really any significant progress in the legislature. There was a bill last session, which will be alive again for 2026. The Democrats, it was a bipartisan bill, which it was bad in its original form. But when the Democrats amended it, it was even worse. And it expanded the emergency power authority even more than it already is in Washington. And it had a Republican on the ticket. So I know that I know the Democrats love to do that to Republicans, and then they amend it and make it even worse than it already was. And so that bill is alive for 2026. So another thing he can do with this emergency powers is, rapid policy changes, more executive orders and things like that. So that said, it does appear to be, I know a lot of people are like, this is tyrannical, this is overreach, this is, are we seceding? I don't see any of that right now. But we'll see. I think it's something to watch. But at this point, like if I was still living in Washington, I would be cautious and concerned, but not alarmed. And so for our friends in Washington, that's what I would say to you. And Dova, B3E, I have had anxiety since he announced that, definitely PTSD. Yeah, that's like Mary said, that's totally understandable. What happened in Washington throughout COVID with Inslee having emergency powers for almost 3 years is like, that was horrible. And I think a lot of people learned a lot from that, but wake up, America. That is what I titled today's live stream, because I feel like people, like we had all this momentum during COVID when people were awake and they were like paying attention to what government was doing and some of the laws and things that were being enacted, and definitely got uncomfortable because they realized that the government has, like, it's a runaway train. But I feel like in the last couple of years, people have gone back to being complacent and comfortable. And especially I think with Trump being elected, that a lot of people have sort of been like, okay, I'm going to like sit back and kick my feet up now. And we just can't do that because the government is equally out of control as it was over the last few years. And keep in mind, you guys, COVID happened under Trump. The lockdown happened under Trump. I don't fully blame Trump, but we have to keep in mind that it did happen on his watch. And so we should always be alert and paying attention. All right, let's look at some of these bills that were in the congressional hearing. I've been talking to you guys about this a lot because I'm very concerned about this. I'm especially concerned because it's being ushered in by Republicans, and because the big tech or whoever has really hijacked the parental rights movement, and a lot of these sort of conservative leaning, I would say, parental rights groups and organizations and conservative think tanks and things like that. Like you have the Heritage Foundation and Focus on the Family and Family Policy Institute and Moms for Liberty, and a lot of these organizations that are very well funded and very considered to be very reputable, that are behind these, that a lot of citizens are just taking their word for it and don't necessarily dig into the details of the bill. And I actually I forget who it was. David Harris Jr. Am I getting the name right? Conservative influencer. He posted about the App Store Accountability Act and said, it's time to protect children. We have to pass the App Store Accountability Act. And it's like, dude, did you even read the bill? Do you even know what it's about? And most of the time they don't. And a lot of these people are paid to post things. A lot of the conservative influencers get paid for their social media posts and their videos and things like that. And it's so frustrating because it's like, here you are, you're just like this little voice out here trying to scream about the truth, and you're up against not only the left, but you've got the conservative, the political industrial complex, which includes the influencers. So again, this is a package of I think it's 18 bills, and like half of them are not like they're, we need to do a study on this. We need to form a committee for that. And so they're not like alarming, but I guess the consistent theme that I'm seeing is that you have a lot of people influencing and making these tech policies that either they don't know how tech operates, or they do and they're like intentionally passing these bills. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt and say they just don't understand tech. But I know that, I don't know his name, but from Apple, one of the big dudes from Apple was there. So there's a couple of different bills. There's the App Store Accountability Act is the one that Apple and Google don't like, because you will have to provide your age verification data to download an app, and minors will have to have parental consent to download an app. For them to have parental consent, we all have to provide our age verification data. Isn't that nice? And so the reason that Meta is funding the App Store Accountability Act is because it removes the responsibility from the apps and the platforms themselves. So if they can put the responsibility on the app stores, then Facebook, Instagram, Grindr, Pinterest, like all of these apps are coming out saying that these platforms are coming out saying that they support the App Store Accountability Act. Well, of course they do, because then they don't have to do anything. So mom lets, Timmy download Snapchat, and Snapchat is just the same garbage dump that it was before the App Store Accountability Act got passed. It has all these in-app dangers for these kids, or Roblox, or, whatever they're doing. And like, we've locked the front door, but we've left all the windows and the back door wide open. And so I don't know if like the people that are supporting this bill, if they don't understand how this works and why this is not parental empowerment, why this is not going to protect kids, but it is actually a gateway to digital ID, and a quick one. I don't know. But so you have that one. Clearly, I'm very passionate against it. It just boggles my mind how it's like we just got like all these blind sheep just going forward on it. Another one that is better is called the Parents Over Platforms Act. And this is also bipartisan. It's Jake Auchincloss and Erin Huchin, I think that's her name, from Indiana. She's a Republican. And this is actually a little bit better. I'm sorry, I don't have my notes on it in front of me, but it puts the responsibility on the platforms themselves. So of course, Meta and all those guys don't like the Parents Over Platforms Act, but Apple and Google do, because it takes the responsibility off of the app stores. And so it's better than the App Store Accountability Act, because it does, there's not really the digital ID framework in that one, but it's not perfect. None of these are perfect. There's the App Store Freedom Act. Is that right? I think it's called the App Store. It's Kat Kamek's bill, and I need to go dig through it. I've kind of gone through it like on a high level, but she is on the subcommittee, and she was speaking today, and she made the point that these bills don't protect kids, and that, you know, we aren't looking at my App Store Freedom Act that actually would give parents more freedom. So I can't say I support it because I haven't dug in enough yet to say, but she made the point many times and in a few different ways that we are missing the mark on actually protecting kids. And you guys probably heard last year about COSA, which is the Keeping Kids Online Safety Act. And I want to show you an X post from Rand Paul. This was from December 7th of last year. Let's go back to his August 3rd statement. This bill does not merely regulate the internet. It threatens to suppress important and diverse discussions that are essential to a free and healthy society. That is why a legion of advocacy groups on the left and the right oppose COSA. So that was August. And then he came back on December 7th and said COSA poses such a dire threat to our First Amendment rights that the House and Senate leadership must not agree to add it at the last minute to larger pieces of legislation like the defense or government spending bills. We're going to get into the defense bill that was passed last night. And to be clear, just because Donald Trump will be in the White House, COSA will still give Democrat AGs in blue states power to censor us conservatives. And this is kind of a common theme with a lot of these tech bills, is that they're really threats to the First Amendment. And I appreciate Rand Paul always being so, you know, I know that he's kind of a controversial figure within the political world, but I do think he votes for what he believes is right. And it seems like he does his best to vote in alignment with the Constitution. Mary has dug it up for me. The App Store Freedom Act. Thank you, Mary. HR 3209. This was not on the committee markup or any. The committee is not considering this bill. Kat Kamek, the prime sponsor of the bill, is a representative from Florida. I need to reach out to her because I don't know, you know, I'm just a small fish in a really big pond, but if there's anything I can do to, you know, make noise about it and try to get people to see what's going on. And it'd be fun to connect with her. So I need to do that over this holiday season. So what happened today in this subcommittee markup is they were offering amendments and they were kind of debating some of these different bills. I know that the App Store Accountability Act got referred out of committee, as did the Parents Over Platforms. There are a couple. The Reset Act is another big one in that package that I really don't like. And so I'll have to go and look and see which ones have been passed out of that subcommittee. One thing about these bills is they violate things that the Supreme Court has ruled out, laws already in place. Yes, that is true. These bills don't. It's interesting to me how often these legislators pass bills that are unconstitutional and will not likely survive constitutional challenges. And I think a lot of these bills, I think you're correct, Yupper Dabber, that a lot of these bills will not do very well in court. And there are a number. I think there's one from Mississippi, a social media bill for minors in Mississippi that was challenged in court. And I think that the people that challenged the law actually won. The App Store Accountability Act did pass in 3 states, Texas, Utah, and Louisiana. I don't know about Utah and Louisiana, but there is a lawsuit already on the Texas bill. And I think that they have a good likelihood of prevailing in that lawsuit against the state of Texas. And so the Texas bill, the Texas App Store bill, is set to take effect on January 1. I'm not sure. We did a live stream yesterday with the Grayson County conservatives who are our friends and affiliates from Texas, who we do a monthly live stream. And so we were kind of talking about it and not sure. I need to look up and see if it will take effect or if there's going to be some kind of court intervention there. The Supreme Court has said that Ohio can't block kids 16 or under off of the internet. Yeah, it's like it's that constitutional challenge. Like, can you block kids from going to the library? There's so much of their world now, whether we like it or not, that is online. And so you mean social media. Yeah. But still, again, it's like the same issue. Like it's, social media is such a, like, one of the people I was watching someone talking about AI in education. I was watching a clip from, I think it was Fox, about someone talking about AI in education and how, we've got to get ahead of this because we can't put the genie back in the bottle after it's out. Newsflash, the genie has been out of the bottle on AI, on social media, on all of this stuff for a very long time. And our government is way behind on this. And unfortunately, in a lot of ways, the people that are working on a lot of these things don't really have, necessarily the expertise to be making tech policy. And so it's, instead of looking like actual protection of kids while maintaining our constitutional rights, it is digital ID. Anyway, I will go through that entire video and the committee and the votes and everything that got passed out and the amendments and kind of collect it all. It's going to take me a little bit of time to figure out the amendments on all of the different bills and where we go from here. But I'll put something out probably on Substack. So if you're not already, if you aren't already subscribed to our Substack, please do that. That's the best way to get updates and alerts. We put out Substacks several times a week, sometimes every day. But I will put it out through the Substack. All right. The last topic of our Thursday live stream, I want to talk about the NDAA that was passed last night. Let's see. I do know that the COSA Act had 13 votes for it by Republican and 10 on it, 10 no votes by the Democrats. Interesting. Will you confirm if that's are you saying that it had 13 yeses by Democrats and 10 no's? So obviously it made it out of committee, but I'm just curious about if that was a party line vote getting it out. So last night, Congress passed the National Defense Authorization Act. This is something that they have to keep redoing every year. That was what Rand Paul's tweet was talking about last December, was let's not sneak the COSA bill into the NDAA. And you guys might remember that the NDAA, they tried this with the big beautiful bill, was to sneak in a 10-year moratorium on AI. And they were going to do that again with the NDAA, but it failed again. So that's good. It was a $900 billion defense bill. It was $8 billion more, I guess, than what Trump was asking for. It passed 312 to 112. I want to say there were 18 Republicans that voted no. And I was really happy to see that my representative, Congressman Greg Steube from Sarasota, he voted no. I was very happy to see that because I think he's pretty good. I think he's pretty conservative. Not perfect, but he's definitely better than, who did I have? I think I had Del Bene when I was in Washington. So he's definitely an upgrade, It includes I think it's a 3.5% pay raise for military service members. It has aid to Ukraine, which I know like a lot of people are hair on fire about. It did authorize $400 million for aid to Ukraine, but this is half of what we've given to Ukraine for the last 3 years. So it's been $800 million for the last 3 years. And so they cut it in half to 400 million, which I think is a good, it's not great, but it's a good sign. It's at least it's showing that we're going to start dialing back. So I was pleased about that. There was an amendment to block that funding by Republicans, but it failed. It failed miserably. 60 yes votes to 372 no. There was 600 million for Israel, specifically for like the Iron Dome and missile defense and things like that. It's funny because when I was doing my search through, it depends on, like, if you're searching through certain means, it won't show you certain things. But there was 600 million for Israel, which is actually an increase from last year. The last few years, it's been 500 million. So they got another 100 million. So do with that what you will. I really only kind of was curious about those two, because I think those were two of our biggest expenses and kind of the things that the two countries that we talk about probably the most. And a couple other notable provisions that were included are it withholds part of the Secretary of Defense travel budget until the footage of the Caribbean the Venezuela drug boat strikes is released. This is also interesting. It removes the IVF coverage expansion for service members. This is, I think, kind of a point of controversy for both sides, but I think it was actually Speaker Johnson that was in support of having it removed, which we don't need to get into an IVF discussion today, but I think it was good that it was removed. It does not include a ban on the central bank digital currency. Conservatives wanted the ban on the CBDC. A couple of odd ends that I thought were in this, or things I thought were odd that ended up in this. A repeal of sanctions on Syria. The travel budget for Pete Hegseth on withholding the tied to the footage of the boats. And of course, the culture war amendments that caused the Democrats to oppose the bill, which is funny because they probably all voted for it last year under Biden, which was probably not a whole lot different. And again, this is more than what Trump, $8 billion more than what Trump had requested, what he wanted. So yeah, just print that money. It's so frustrating because it's like for people like us that are, just citizens who want our government to be transparent and accountable and good stewards of our tax dollars. It feels like, what do you do? How do you make a dent? And so it's frustrating. It's discouraging, but yeah, a lot going on. If we were hoping that Trump would come in and save the day for us, that is absolutely not happening. That is not the case. There are some good things, there are some wins, but there's a lot of government overreach going on. And so I just would encourage citizens, I'd encourage you to do what you can to just prepare your home, prepare your family, protect yourselves, have your food storage and your water storage. And no, I don't think there's like a collapse or anything big coming, but sometimes we just feel better when we're prepared and when we've done all of those things. So it's a lot this week. Washington State, they're in their pre-filing mode. And I know a lot of you guys are probably watching us from Washington. This is the end of the second week of pre-filing. And I'm going to say I'm pleased that they haven't put in the onslaught of bills that they typically do, but there are a number of really, really bad bills. So, with Washington being at what is it, like a $4.5 billion deficit now, whereas a couple years ago, I think they were saying they were up 16 billion. And so, they're going to pass a lot of bills that maybe don't have a huge fiscal impact, but will have a huge impact on the lives of the citizens. So we'll be watching that. We'll be putting out bill alerts as we see them, as we have them. If you see something in any state or at a federal level that you think should be on our radar, that you would like us to dig deeper into. Maybe it's a bill and you just don't understand exactly what it means. We are happy to do that. Please feel free to reach out to us. You can go to our website, conservativeladiesofamerica.com, and you can fill out a contact form and we will reach out to you, get back to you. And we love to geek out on policy. So if you see something that we should be looking into, and then in January, I'm sort of working on like rebranding my personal podcast, which I was really sporadic about, just because I have so many other things going on. And so it'd be like, if I had the time and if I felt like it, I would do it. My husband titled it, this was, I don't know, 4 years ago, Womansplaining, which I love. I think it's cute, but if you're a dude scrolling through podcasts, probably not going to click on Womansplaining. But when I do the conservative ladies types of things, I like to keep it policy focused, but I do research a lot of other things that are political in nature, but maybe aren't policy focused. And I like to research and I like to dig and investigate in things. And I want to share some of that with you guys. So I will be rebranding and relaunching in January. I'll be doing that here on this YouTube channel. And I'll have it on, wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and all those places. So that'll expand the things that you hear from us here on the YouTube channel and everywhere else you hear from me as well. So thanks you guys for joining us. We've had a lot of big stuff that we've been covering in the last couple of weeks. So if you have missed anything, please go back on our YouTube channel and watch some of those other videos and get up to speed on some of that stuff. I think, just the more that citizens are aware of what's going on so that, they can prepare themselves so that they're not going to download an app from the App Store and they had no idea that the App Store Accountability Act passed. And now they have to put in their, digital ID to be able to download apps. So awareness at least lets us protect ourselves and plan ahead. So I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend. Oh, one last thing. I will be on the Washington Gun Law Happy Hour tomorrow with Bill Kirk, the president of Washington Gun Law. We do a lot of tag teaming together on, especially on the Washington state gun bills as they go through the legislature. And so we're going to be talking about some of the stuff that's coming up in Washington on the 2A front for the 2026 legislative session. So if you are not already, head over to Washington Gun Law on YouTube and subscribe to their channel and catch us live tomorrow. Again, it'll be 5 p.m. Pacific time. And we'll be going through all of this stuff that we think is coming up in 2026. So I hope you'll join us tomorrow. If not, have a great weekend and I will see you guys soon.